we are in India right now, and good evening in San Francisco. How are you doing?
Okay, good morning, Gaurav. Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for taking out the time on a Sunday evening early. So, just before we start, want to give you some context. So, Joy of Performing or Job podcast that I run is really about the performance and how the goals and execution kind of align together. Our audience are worldwide, globally, leaders, business leaders, entrepreneurs, HRs, whoever is trying to solve the business and people performance issue is what we get the audience for. So, with that context, Murli, it would be great if we can take a couple of minutes. You can introduce yourself to the audience, give your background, and we go from there. Over to you.
Okay, great. First of all, yeah, thanks for giving the opportunity here, and also great to learn the what you are really working on. Hopefully, that definitely makes a good impact on the industry. So, just to give you like my background, so I started my journey like the on the chemical engineering side, like back in years in India. So that gives like very good perspective about capturing like multiple aspects, like the process discipline, like the math and the dynamics, like in the industry. That's what really like laid like my foundation and thinking. The to think about like the data to solve the like very critical problems. So for the last the 20 years, I've been like focusing on the life sciences side, the especially on the commercialization and data and analytics. How do you really leverage the data that ties to the like strategies of the companies? So I got a chance to work with a like, global consulting, like the professional consulting, like where I got a chance to work with a variety of biotech companies, including like large biotech and emerging pharma, medical devices. So they all really have a different cultures and the different disciplines, right, like on how do they commercialize their products. So it's always like a continuous learning and building, stacking on top of like the fundamentals. In the last several years, the I've been working in the industry setting, the coming out of the consulting, like the nature. So I still leverage like a lot of the what I built in the initial years, and the try to adapt to the dynamics which are happening, like the both the trends in the industry, the how the teams are really approaching the markets, and also the technology and discipline which is out there. So definitely that's been the journey like so far.
No, that's great, and what expansive kind of experience and understanding you have of the life sciences as well as the space that you're in. So Murli, let me ask you. You know exactly what we do at Job, right? The whole big picture of business and people performance, goals to execution, alignment, collaboration. Why is this an interesting topic to you? I mean, why do you think that is something which is interesting and important for organizations to follow, for people to follow? And then the second part of the question is why more so for the life sciences industry and the domain? Would love to know your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, that's great, Gaurav. So first of all, as you like know the life sciences briefly based on our conversations earlier. So life sciences, obviously, like any other industry, always like starts with a strategy, like very good intent towards the serving the certain type of population, right? Like the patient first strategy or patient centric journey, right, as opposed to product centric. So all this like strategy is like good starting point, and then it has to really like funnel through the execution and then to achieve the performance. So in a life sciences industry, behaviors the matters the most, right? The that is one important aspect. The when I say like behaviors, obviously the other industries might use the behaviors as well, but the cultural related behaviors. So that sets the companies apart from just purely like following the activity driven. So I think there is a fine distinction at the activity versus the behaviors and the habits. So that sets that stone towards tying like your activities close to the cultural alignment. So that's what really like leads to the longer term success, as opposed to just keep like track of the performance measures and only the activities that tie to it closely, versus the you have to really like start with the behaviors. So that's what really like sticks to the customers. So with that, I think like to go into the second part of the question, in the life sciences, obviously there are like various scenarios. Of course, we could generalize, but I think if we take like one particular scenario, emerging pharma. So especially when they are really like launching the products, and then when they go into the post-launch scenario, so that's where the lot of collaboration, right? Like all these the behaviors and execution has like multi-step process, right? The one is building a capabilities like analytics and data-driven foundation. So that's one side of things, and then like field like sales, they focus on execution by taking the insights they taken from the home office the folks, and so they have to really like stick with their side of the discipline. And then also there are like variety of teams like within the home office, right? Like they all have to like work together. So for example, like taking an example, if you have to really build a perception change of a modern therapy that company is designing, so the medical teams like needs to come up with a narrative. They need to really come up with a scientific evidence. They need to prove that, like we establish a clinical guidelines. So that is like really fundamental for building the perception change. Whereas when you think about a commercial teams, they have to really establish the good access, like good negotiation, economics, and the outcomes side of the story, to see why this is really beneficial for the insurance companies, which is also known as payers, right, in the industry. So you need to really build that story like from that angle, and then like sales and other the end users, they will need to really build the story from the adoption and then the attitudes of the individual the stakeholders like HCPs and patients. So that means they all have to really like work together under the one fundamental goal, and then they have to really branch out and then solve the problem, but not like a siloed way. It has to be like cohesive. So that's where tying all these objectives like together, but still parsing out into the more details which are relevant for them. But at the end of the day, they all like needs to be the connected together in a dynamic fashion. So that's where I totally see the objectives and key results and goal setting, right? Like at the top level, trickling downwards, which is more relevant for this industry. So they may be following like different methods, but definitely needs a like more structured discipline as the companies are really growing and expanding.
No, that's awesome. And with my experience in the industry as well, and I'm talking more so on the umbrella of the whole performance management, whether it's business people, goal setting, execution. One thing that people or leaders talk about very highly is the culture of the organization, right? And how to create that high performance culture in the organization. And you're absolutely right, Murli. It is the culture is a very soft, broad word to use, but if you really look at it, it kind of boils down to that: what is the discipline in the organization, what is the behavior which is being driven in the organization, and how consistently that behavior is driven, right? Is it a one off thing where leaders just talk about it and forget about it? Or it's something that can be cascaded in the organization and people really live up to it, and that's the way their way of working becomes, right? And I think that's where the framework of whether an OKR or any goal setting and then driving it in the organization makes a lot of sense. And second point, absolutely right. It is very easy to get into your own silo, right? Hey, if I am into research, then that's what my silo is. I'm going to do great in that, and I don't know what is happening in the other aspects. If I'm in the commercial side of it, my silo is taking it to market and so on and so forth, and I don't know how to connect back to research. So I think you're absolutely right that the organization's success happens when collaboratively successful you're able to achieve the goals and not just get into your silo. So great for that. So I want to understand, Murli, give me three big challenges that life sciences as an industry is facing and what we are discussing right now, that you think that can be solved with maybe a framework of goal setting, execution, or performance. And there is a possibility of a solution, but people are not doing it because maybe they are not aware or they are not giving it as much importance that it deserves. So over to you, would love to understand this.
Sure. So for fundamentally, like when you're thinking about like behaviors like needs to be like very continuous process. Uh, for example, historically, there's always like a next best action recommendations engines, right? Like they are really like gleaning the insights, sending it to on the field's way. That means sales reps are really getting these insights. So what needs to happen is like in this AI like generation, that needs to be a continuous feedback loop. So
Hmm.
systems have been really working in a like more of a disconnected the way historically. So I think with the speed of the how the agentic world is really like happening, so things needs to be really in a the connected way. So that's one challenge, right? Like that needs to be addressed. So that means there should be like continuous the performance continuous like feedback mechanism. And then the second thing is especially the analytics play a significant role, obviously in the execution layer. So while analytics are really being executed, analytics really perceived in a different way, like the different levels, right? Like across the different functions. The maturity of the analytics could vary across functions. So that means when you're like really thinking about like tying these objectives, right? And they're trying to create some cohesive story. So obviously, so it may mean like differently, and then might overwhelm like one group or the other. How do you really like make sure when you are really like building these objectives and building their priorities needs to have a some cohesive story like that is really meaningful for the individual department, and also that ties back to the original objective which is coming at the organizational level. So that is the like a second challenge, I would say. So these are
Understood.
the two things I can think of. But let me, yeah, during the journey, I can point out like some more the
Sure.
challenges.
And you're absolutely right. Like if I do think about it, and there are many people that I talk to in the industry of life sciences also today and globally, right? Whether it's pharma in the US, or life sciences in the US or India or even the Europe, one thing that I do see is that that loop of being continuous feedback and then continuously understanding that if there are gaps, then how do we execute on those gaps now, not look at it at the end of the year when the whole year has passed by and you can't go back in time and doing anything about it, saves businesses a lot of cost, time, and efficiency, right? Because when you are able to act on it real time, that's where this whole loop can be continuous and created, right? And second, absolutely, I think a lot of time, effort, and I've seen it more in life sciences than any other industry really, where analytics is given a huge potential and huge importance, right? But what is the second, why are we doing analytics? I think we are doing it so that we can do better decision making. And if we can tie that to the people and the execution side of it, it just kind of becomes much more powerful, right? Because now you are data backed, you can understand what is happening, you can tie that with your people and performances and really create that loop of continuous feedback and performance, which I think organizations sometimes miss. So great. You spoke about AI, right? I mean, there is so much being spoken about agentic AI and AI in the whole business world, and even the whole performance and goal setting, and the continuous loop of things. Where do you see AI is being used today, agentic or generative AI, various ways? And where do you see it going to be used in, let's say, 27, 28, and beyond? There is so much being said about it, but what are your take on this?
Sure, that's a great question, Gaurav. So, in fact, when you think about life sciences, I'm sure there is a connected healthcare ecosystem. I think like now industry is thinking like more of a big picture thinking, as opposed to like purely focus on the manufacturers or like the drug maker standpoint. So that is where, depending on the disease area or the therapeutic area, there are some like that requires like a heavy the top end diagnostic thinking, right? Like for example, like a cardiology and the oncology that requires a like heavy the diagnosis lens, right? Like applied on the front end. So that is where there's like a lot of advancement in detecting these like cancers and the detecting the phenotypes, right, and the DNA. So sequencing has becoming like the much easy like accessible today compared to like decade ago. So that is like one advancement. Like with the advent of AlphaFold 2, you can really like predict the protein like the behavior, and so that's where you can like predict a lot of the diseases and then their behaviors like much early, which really gives you like much options to like react and right like the address them like in the early in the phases. So that is where on the diagnostic side of things. So obviously on the health techs partnerships, there is like a lot of evolution, especially the combinations of life sciences companies and then tech partnerships are like really giving edge towards the device centric, like especially in the med device industry. So that's where there's a good advancement of AI. So it's more on the engineering, like detection side that we spoke about so far. But when it comes to the life sciences, the industry itself, the drug discovery has like really advanced so much that you are able to identify the like the proteins and even other like the compounds like much easily, and then that ties to the behavior of the disease and pathways. So that is the good advancement. And there are areas in which like where the life sciences is like falling behind, because especially in the with the regulatory constraints. So anything that relates to submissions and anything that requires a reporting to regulatory agencies, obviously there is like a lot of scrutiny involved, right, on what you can really produce and then what you can explain. The explainability is like a big challenge in that area. So that's where they always like stick with the fundamentals of statistics. So always like you get that right, like with the precision that they need. And obviously on the like when you move down to the organization, other the departments like medical affairs and commercial. So that's where like there's a lot of the generative AI, especially gleaning through your publications and scientific materials, and then being able to like the define the unmet needs and the gaps in the therapy areas. Also like building the narratives that can be really like passed on to the medical sciences teams. And also commercial, obviously there is like advancement. They are able to understand the customer better, the improving customer understanding, and also even the devising the methods to serve those customers, right, like in a more meaningful way, much faster turnaround compared to like waiting for weeks or days before. So I think this is kind of like giving the holistic look at the top level. I'm sure like there are like more nuances for one industry versus the other, but there are tons of like variations within the different disease areas.
No, that's great. And thank you for breaking it down so beautifully, right? Because you could have given one holistic answer, but I don't think that would have helped. So, really breaking it down into different pillars of life sciences and where it can be used is really, really good. Uh, I latch on to this predictive side of AI, right? And I think a lot is being spoken about it. So tell me, and sorry for my ignorance, and I'm sure the audience would have these questions as well. So, what is the difference between analytics, where there is structured data and you're trying to put that data and analyze that data and then come up with some kind of a decision making from that analysis, versus prediction, which I think AI can do a lot of on unstructured data as well? Data can be in many different forms. So, what is the core difference there? And where do you see, is the intelligence of AI going to be used in that particular space where prediction now can maybe overtake or can work parallelly with analytics and give things that the audience didn't have the scope before? So, would love to know about that.
Sure. So, yeah, when we define the analytics, Gaurav, I think it has especially when you think about commercialization, commercial analytics, there is like a lot of the discipline that packed into that analytics, beyond the dashboards, right, that we typically see in other industries. Especially life sciences have a patient journey, right? Like the thinking about a longitudinality of a patient, the decision process, right? Like how the patient is like really given a certain. So analytics has a like some good the packaging that happens, especially in the commercial space. It touches upon the patient journey, mainly the longitudinality of the patient, right, like the diagnosis and the disease, and then medicine uptake. So that is like one thing which is represented like longitudinally, so that we understand the how the utilization is really happening, switch is happening, what really like makes them to the switch from one therapy to other class of therapy. So that is like one really good perspective, right? Like that requires some good study, and also even market understanding, like building the patient, the payer, and physician perspective to understand the triangulation of where we should be really like spending some time, right? That is one example that I can give you, and the similar other examples are like forecasting, the to think about like various elements, right? So all of these like requires some discipline, right? Like before we jump into the AI, so historically people have used like a discipline of math and then the various techniques, so to come up with this problem solve. So that means each of these areas, they can be simply replaced by AI, because there's a lot of the explainability and then connected thinking. So that means they'll probably like stay as the disciplines, but maybe some modules like will get the swapped by AI to make it like more the efficient in production. So time to the generation will be reduced. So that's like what I can see on the heavy end analytics, which is we call it as advanced analytics. And then also a main advantage of the AI is where you can really like the produce the insights like faster, where it used to take like more time, or like maybe you are working around like some pain point, right? Whether you can't really like study the unstructured data easily, right? So that's where one example is if they're like sentiments and then social like posts, and then also a lot of like commentary around the how the disease really is treated. A lot of like market research studies, right? Like where you used to have a lot of responses. Now for the companies, market research companies, it becomes like much easy to the glean the insights from the unstructured data, and then connect them dynamically to other sets of data, whether it is a social listening or it could be the like perceptions, and then the market studies, and then the insights gathered from like KOLs, and then like the conference inputs. All of them can be really connected. The combination of like structured, unstructured data can be combined easily using the like generative AI world. So which is doesn't require like a high level of precision, but I think it definitely like gives you speed to be able to act faster. So where it requires like a precision, like as I pointed out in the case of clinical studies and then validation, you will definitely need a like human intervention. You might use like AI in bits and pieces, right? Like where the QC and reconciliation type of jobs, but not necessarily you will replace a lot of bigger pieces in those disciplines.
Understood. No, very well explained, Murli. So let me ask you this question, right? So one side is the whole head office, the research side, the support side, and the other side is more commercial, the sales side in the life sciences, right? And on the pharma side, the sales side of it, there is a lot of feet on street. So let's shift gears on the sales side, on the commercial side of it. And how do you think that today, how are those people or those steps, being managed today? And with AI, where do you see that also being shifted per se?
Sure. So especially with the commercial side, especially taking the sales side, like not the home office, but like mainly on the sales side. So now sales teams have much better tools, right? Like the advent of GPTs, right? And then they have the local tools available to question. But I think the one of the noise is, of course, you ask the question and then like it's all driven by subjected to like better prompts. So and also even the data that you are really acquiring, you are acquiring the generic data, right? So that's where any generic tool gives the like a lot of noise and then the overhead for the sales teams. So it may not really help out. So that's where it's really important to have a personal agents really like trained on the very relevant data. It's combination of like maybe public the data. On top of that, you probably need to feed in a lot of your company context. So that is where the sales teams are able to use those agents like in their day-to-day tools. So if they're really using a like Teams channels or it could be any other the independent tools, and these agents are like deployed there so that they can ask these questions on these like the privately built infrastructure. So that can give them the very relevant insights. So that's where it has to be really like focused effort. Obviously needs some discipline to build these tools.
And where is the industry today? Are these tools already inside the industry and being used by organizations, or these are just in beta testing phase right now, and we are looking at maybe 1 2 years before they're going to be used commercially? Where do you see the industry is?
Sure. So definitely there are like a lot of early adopters who have deployed this years ago, and there are some the companies in all like maybe 10 to 15% of people who have deployed these already, and then maybe 30 40% are like really in the process of like deploying. They're doing the beta testing, and there are companies who are doing it traditional methods still. So there's like still the good opportunity like for them to catch up on. But overall, I think in the industry, yeah, the teams have really they made a good progress. The that really
Right.
sets the foundation for others to follow.
So the laggards, the companies who are not really in the run today, you think they will also come into the whole play? And do you think they are going to lose out on the early advantage, or you think it should be okay because early on it is just a lot of test and see what runs. So it's okay to wait and kind of enter into this whole race maybe once it's a little bit mature. What is your personal thinking on that?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say not necessarily all of these are like really losing anything. Maybe it's the like specific to the context they are in and how they are really reaching out to the patients and HCPs. I know some industries, like some of the disease areas, they are like rare diseases where you only have like handful of patients in the world. So you won't be really like talking about like not more than the 1,000 patients, right? Like for a given disease, there are variations of this. So obviously their focus is on like the personalized care than using technology to the reach out to like very broader set of customers. So with those kind of the settings, it is still like fine. They can survive without using the technology as long as they have the fundamental and discipline for care.
Got it. I'm gonna ask a couple of tough questions now.
Sure.
So nobody knows, and nobody cannot even answer with proper certainty. But do you think there are going to be jobs lost in life sciences because of AI, in whatever, whether it's the research side, the head office side, the support side, the sales side, or you think it's just going to add on to the efficiency of the existing people and people are not going anywhere? What is your take on this?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I think it's a the good question, like to think through. But I'm sure like there is no the right or wrong answer here. But I think the one thing that I have observed is compared to the rest of the industries, life sciences is like not really firing people just because of the AI like the being coming in. Of course, AI like journey has started a bit later for this industry, but on the other hand, there's a huge opportunity, and then the unsolved problems, right? Like in the healthcare space. So with the while the technology is evolving, disease landscape and then the disease behaviors, right? Like they are really being spread out, and that requires a good set of good pair of hands to start thinking through. So at least based on like the what I'm listening into in a couple of settings in a focus groups or a couple of conversations, I might not be representing like a whole industry, but based on like what I'm seeing in a small settings and a couple of my social circles and focus groups, it is definitely going to take some time, like for the agents to take over the completely. And I'm sure industry is like demanding the AI skill to be adopted, like for you to survive in the industry. So definitely they're not kicking off people, but they are like really recommending and encouraging people to like know AI and deploy things. So that's what I think is likely to happen. So as long as you are in the industry with the competition, you need to like learn the AI skills to survive.
No, awesome. So I've got two boys, yeah, 9 and 11. Do you think life sciences is a good industry for them to follow, let's say 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line? Is that something that you would suggest for people who are young and want to make your career in life sciences ahead?
Sure, certainly. I think the one is the when I'm really guiding like the younger folks, there are like this framework that I really keep in mind, right? Like very simple framework, which is one is what drives passion, what makes it like exciting. So of course, like when they're in the young age, so they may not be really thinking through. They may not have clarity, but I'm sure like they would have developed some perspectives around. Are they really interested in science? Not just like the profession of the practitioners or doctors, like which used to have only the doctor profession in the science area, or pharmacist and a couple of areas, agriculture. But definitely, this is one of the area. If they are really interested in the passionate about like the working towards saving people's life and then improving the patient's life. So definitely that is like one leg of the framework. The other things are like especially the opportunity, right? There's a tons of opportunities available in this field. That is the one reason like they'll definitely get treated and they'll have a lot more responsibility to serve in that area. Third is like definitely the skill the perspective. I'm sure like nowadays, like if you take any discipline, the beyond the sciences, you need to really be good in math. So
Hmm.
math was like really knowingly or unknowingly is ignored by significant, but still there are like mathematicians whose focus is different, like PhDs. But now, in general, I think like focusing on like math as a fundamentals is really essential to connect to the science side of things. So to be able to succeed. So with all the three the dimensions, so if they show like more interest on they have more passion, and then like if they're interested more on the science side of aspects, So definitely, I would encourage them to explore the life sciences areas.
That's very interesting. I think I'll have a session with you with the boys one day.
Sure.
But I think it's a very interesting perspective for the audience, that how important it is to bring that science and maths together to increase the opportunity and increase the probability of success and make use of the opportunities ahead. I think that's a very interesting take. So, Murli, personally, where do you see yourself by 2030, 2035? What do you see yourself driving in the industry?
So the two different aspects. One is definitely where I am currently right now. Right, the I just want to embed like more into the science innovation, and then see how we can really help like science grow with the data science. So I think I'm sure like there is more loosening on the scientific side of things, and as we have more innovation, more findings, more discovery, so that's where I want to really contribute towards how we can really like do the early detection, early like predictions on the discovery side if I get opportunity. So beyond the commercial expertise that I was having, so that can really be benefit from the AI. The second aspect is, especially to your earlier question, I do want to like spend some time in guiding the like next generation and younger professionals towards educating and also encouraging them on why this is really important, because the healthcare definitely needs a good help and support from the more people, right? Like the as the disease landscape is like really diversifying, more and more diseases. So definitely there is a like need for that to create an impact. So that's where I want to spend some time in doing the coaching and education, and possibly the creating some content, right, to serve that community.
Yeah, I think count me in for the second one. I don't think I can add a lot of value for the first. I'm not a industry, person there. But the second one, I think it's very interesting to me as well because I think that world is going to be very different in the next decade or so, right? So people like yourself who've accomplished so much in life and really ahead of the curve, if you guys have already started to think about how to give back to the next generation, I think that's a beautiful thought. So count me in whatever little that I can do with that, right? With my humble experience. But thank you so much, Murli, for your time. We are really at the end of it. If you think that I may have missed something asking you, which you think is very interesting, please feel free to talk about that.
So I think you touched upon like some good aspects like the analytics, AI, and then also the like next level of thinking, right? Like where do we really position ourselves? So one thing that I would always say is even I consider myself as a kind of like naive, like to begin with. Especially one thing that my like the coaches and mentors taught me is. Approach the industry with a naive mindset, and then like bring in the tools and then your expertise as it fits in. So that way, like doesn't matter whether you really help with like 20 or 30 the companies with like launch and data analytics, right, onboarding. So each company like carries its own the flavors and then own problems and challenges. So I think the positioning like from a fresh mindset really like, gives you some ideas. Like even I saw the other side of the story as well. Even though I may not be executing on like a lot of functions, but like my learning has been like the approaching that way is like led to the success. So that's where even I consider like myself being like naive, and then like not knowing anything, and then so maybe like bring in that expertise either like within us or like maybe with the external expertise. So always like consulting and getting that the thoughts from the industry and peers, which is like really the important aspect.
Yeah, more so today, right? I think you got to always be learning today if you want to succeed in any field that is. So beautiful. So Murli, if the audience wants to reach out to you, do you prefer a channel? Would you like to share? How can they do that?
So LinkedIn is a good platform. So I interact with folks on the LinkedIn, and so certainly that is the preferred platform. And in the future, we can think about like a better ways to engage. I know I have like some focus groups. I catch up on the WhatsApp. So once you have some initiatives or any interests, so we can always like kickstart a focus groups and then work together on some interesting problems. So if you are aligned on a common goals.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you, Murli, again. And this was beautiful. Thank you for sharing your thoughts very candidly. Somebody I've worked with you. I've always interacted, always enjoyed our conversation, and I can tell the audience that there is so much depth that you have for the subject that you know about. Right, under this whole humility side of yours, there is a very intelligent and very very giving side of yours as well. So thanks, Murli, and appreciate it. I think we'll follow up with further communication in the future. Thank you so much.
Sounds great. Yeah, thanks, Gaurav. It's a great pleasure meeting you here.
Absolutely.